Welcome everybody. Welcome to our first session. Welcome to our first panel, the creative curation of African American art song. My name is Gabriela Cruz. I'll be moderating part of this panel, and then unfortunately I'll have to sneak up. Please don't notice when I sneak up. We have a very distinguished group of speakers today, and I'm so happy to know that they're all musicians, and therefore they'll keep very good time. This is going to be important because we're going to cover a lot of ground today. And so without further ado, I'll start introducing our first speakers today. That's Stephanie Ball and Happen Leutner, and they're here to talk to us about their Art Song Colorado project. And so the first part of this panel is really about institutions, micro and not so micro, and their importance in curating African American art song. So Stephanie Ball is a lyric soprano. She's also a member of the Art Song Colorado. She has created concept programs that showcase and the many contributions African Americans have made to classical music. Happen Leutner is also a singer, a lyric tenor. He has a distinguished career in American theaters already, but he's here also again to talk to us about the Denver Art Song Project, and this is why we're here today. And so without much ado, please go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's give me a second. So my name is Ethan Leutner, and I'm the founder of Art Song Colorado. Now, if you tried to look us up on the internet, you would find a very static web page. And the reason why is because we haven't even incorporated yet. But I do want to go back in time 4 years and tell you how we began, because we actually have been around for 4 years. We just don't look like it. So in the beginning, you know, we started out, my wife, I moved to Colorado from New York City, from Brooklyn, and my wife was like, you need a hobby, man, because when you're around the house, not on a gig, you are a mess. And so I got together with a friend of mine who I had met in Colorado, another Ithaca College alumni. Go Bombers, we're Division B, so 2, so it doesn't matter. And so Mallory and I made an album called A Single Step, songs of Beethoven and Donati. And we did Andi Friona Geliebte and 3 songs by Donati, just a little album. And that led to a number of recitals. It also led to this idea that the recital, while it was exciting vocally, a lot of our audience had no idea what the art song genre was. And so we started to incorporate storytelling and giving context to the songs through visual art, and really being tech forward. You'll notice that I'm, using a clicker. We always have super titles and video components, and we curate songs to be paired with art. And then all of this turned into a group that we called Denver Art Song Project, and that started in about 2015. Excuse me. So that happened, right? We did all this stuff, and what happened? Well, we grew, and it was a little bit unexpected because I'm trying to keep up a solo career, and this is kind of getting in the way of it. So we started making art song videos for YouTube, and it was really exciting because I realized that the art song genre is perfectly suited for the internet. There is no genre. I challenge you all to find me afterwards and tell me I'm wrong. But there is no there's no classical music genre that is more suited to the internet than the art song, because it's short, it tells a story, and then it leaves you alone. And that's it leaves you alone to think about it. And that's really important. I mean, you've got to be able to tell these really concise stories through the internet, and it's perfect. So we made a show, and we call it Art Song Colorado. Stephanie was a guest, and we'll talk. I'll let Stephanie talk for herself in a little while. But the show, what it does is it takes an art song and it contextualizes it with a story or with a painting, and we can use that audio-visual medium to really connect with audiences. So when you go to our Facebook page and to our YouTube channel, you'll see that we do kind of weird things. Like I'm looking, right now we're in the middle of our second season of the show, and I'm curating and we're using our album of Die Schöne Müllerin by Schubert for voice and guitar. And my guitarist and I are comparing each song to a meme that we made up. So we're trying to really tie that to the vernacular of the internet, the meme culture, the meme internet. And it's funny, it's weird, but I think that it really makes a connection that people can relate to. Once upon a time, we all sang songs for one another. And now, in our day-to-day lives, we don't. And I think that that's a loss that we can fill through the power of the internet and through the power of digital media. We do things with puppets. I don't know why, but I love puppets. And so if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see The Jabberwocky by Lee Hoybe. And we did it with puppets and digital effects, and it's really, really weird. So I hope you check it out. We also do 360 and VR videos of art song performance. We just released our first one, and the idea is that you're in an art gallery, you're watching a performance, you can see the super titles, but if you turn, you can see curated art, and it's like you're in a living art gallery as you experience this art song. So if you like the art, great. If you like the performance, great, you can watch either. It doesn't matter. And so what's the message that we learned? We learned that art song is perfect for new audiences to the genre and classical music in general. We learned that we wanted to make it broadly accessible and relatable. We focus on digital platforms just as much as we focus on really tight and lively storytelling-based performances of art song. And we're not afraid to experiment or fail. Now, this is important because if you see my videos and you see a mistake, you all are a very savvy audience. I'm okay with that. I'm cool with that. A lot of times in this world, you're curating your life for Facebook or Instagram, and everything has to be perfect, right? We all have this digital presence that's like magical, and I don't believe in that. I think that if you want to get to know me as a person, you might want to know my mistakes as well as my successes. So experimentation, let's talk a little bit about that. So as we were expanding on this idea of really experimenting, it became really important to me that this becomes a platform for other artists and not just me. I'm only as good as the friends that I hang out with. And so that has been a driving influence for me. Another thing, for those of you who are singers, you know that sometimes in this age of do it for publicity or exposure, I'm gonna die of exposure, we don't do that. We actually have contracts and we try to pay. We can't pay a lot yet because we're really a micro organization, but I've challenged myself to really make sure that everybody walks out of there, everybody except me, walks out with a paycheck. And then also I really wanted to make sure, a lot of times singers are directed, right? We go into a show and we're told, you're gonna play the part of the Duke, you're gonna play the part of Gilda, and that's all that your job is to show up and do that. And your personal storytelling takes a sideline. And the art song genre is really the place where I think as artists and singers, we have the opportunity to share our own personal stories. So take all of that up and what are the lessons learned? And if I don't do this in 5 minutes, I'm gonna get strung up. Staying small and focusing on our mission. Really, really important. I overextended myself last season and I learned a lot of really valuable lessons because I had to cancel a lot of stuff. That hurt. Oh, come back. Come back. I might have to, I'm just gonna move over here a second and I'm just gonna switch slides here. Can I just hit the space bar? Oops. Looks like there's a phone call coming in. Okay. Okay, I just want you to know this is not my fault. Mistakes, exactly. I embrace my mistakes. Only this time it's the computer machine, not me. Hello.
Daryl is joining us from California, so it's 7 in the morning there. He didn't want to miss this conference. He is an alum and an important part of the conversation of African American art song. So arranged for Daryl to call in. She's supposed to call in slightly Welcome, come in, have a seat. Mr. Group from Andrews? Yay, Andrews University joined us. From Russell. Yes, it's all planned.
Yes, let me get us back on track. All right, so I'm going to stay by here since the clicker stopped working too. So I wanted to stay small and focus on the mission. We learned that that our audiences really craved context about art song. Back in the day, again, we would be singing songs that were related to that everybody knew, and so this was an opportunity for us to now use our storytelling to really get to the core of the context of these songs. And then we decided to go with thematic concerts. So for example, we did a show for a while called Monsters, Creatures, and Legends. And the show was just about spooky songs, songs about animals. It's really a kid-focused show. We also did Shakespeare's Songs, which is a chance for us to share songs about Shakespeare. And then what we found is that our message went beyond Denver, Colorado Springs, Grand Junction, Fort Collins, and so we needed a reboot. So what did a reboot look like? We call it Art Song Colorado, and we've come up with a sustainable business model. I'm putting that out there if you want to chat with me about it. We think we've got something where we're not going to be relying on donations as much, which is, I think, a very strong position to be in as an arts organization. We're doing curated shows with storytelling and art. We have diverse and quirky video content that you can check out. We're making old-fashioned albums, like the kind you put on a bookshelf. We also release them digitally. We have 2 more coming out under our new label. And we want to elevate Colorado artists to a national platform. And that's where I turn my mic over to my friend Stephanie Ann Ball, who will talk about her curated show, The Pillars of African American Art Songs.
Thank you, Eben. I will keep this very brief, but when Eben and I met, we actually met at an opera audition, and in the waiting room, we bonded over our love of art song, and I just completely fell in love with the concept of what is now Art Song Colorado and the multimedia aspect that he has for all of the performances and the videos and the cool tech he was bringing in. And around the same time, I had come up with 2 concept programs of my own, one that was showcasing African American spirituals and one that was a hybrid of spirituals and classical music. And my sister is an African American historian at Occidental University in LA. So I had included a lot of historical context and cool pieces of information that the audience could really use to connect the music to the things in history that were happening in America. So I said, hey, Eben, I think I got something for you. Colorado needs something like this. This is music that is not represented here, especially considering the demographic of that part of the country. And that's how the Pillars of African American Art Song was born. I set it up so it's based on 4 different components: the women composers, the men composers, songs set to text by African American poets, and spirituals. So it gives us lots of flexibility to rotate different repertoire in and out when we're feeling like we want to be flexible, and work with different singers when we have different voice types, and all sorts of cool stuff with art and photography and different multimedia concepts. And it's been very successful, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we could grow it into something beautiful. So please come chat with us afterwards. We'd love to get to know you.
Thank you. This is so interesting, and I'm sure you'll have lots of questions, and you'll be happy to answer and to talk about more specifically about the work you've been doing, and especially the movies and so forth and so on, all the audiovisual. Well, our next speaker is Lynn Foote, and she's working on our PhD project on Harry Burleigh and freedom music in Jim Crow, New York. She was working at Oxford University on her PhD. She's also the co-founder of the Harry T. Burleigh Society, and it's in that capacity that she's here today to talk to us about this nonprofit organization and its work. And thank you, Lynn.
That's okay.
Sorry.
The Harry T. Burleigh Society is informed by the tension between institutionalization, which Burleigh did working within Western art music, and instituting new approaches, which Burleigh did with his genre-altering solo art songs, worship music, instrumental music, and his music publishing career, which he created new repertoire and new performance opportunities. The Burleigh Society carries out this both instituting and institutionalizing by producing public events, private events, through our use of social media, which we use to, as the Denver Art Songs talking about, contextualize Black art music through our website, blog, and other resources. But also it's a really important place for us to forward the careers of the artists that we work with. We work across all ranks of scholars, as well as artists and students. And we think it's really important to produce gorgeous material culture, which we are archiving as we go along. But we have often wondered what we could learn from the minutes of meetings, song lists from radio listening parties, and other material culture of previous Burleigh societies, choral groups, and music associations. David Levering Lewis says Burleigh was Du Bois's favorite singer. And in a 1933 issue of The Crisis, he wrote, quote, "All art is propaganda, in which, quote, artists have used goodness in all its aspects of justice, honor, and right. Established in that spirit, our mission follows Burleigh's radical creation of Black art music, working to disrupt boundaries and challenge social norms, to address the issues of the day through the transformative power of art, which you can both see and hear in the following performance by my co-founder, Dr. Slayton, as she sings Lovely Dark and Lonely One, from a poem by Langston Hughes at our inaugural concert in 2017. Oh, you know what? I think at the beginning, sorry, hit enable content. Shoot, sorry. It's tied to a YouTube clip. It's embedded in the slide. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Another technical problem. Yeah, would you?
I think the gods of technology haven't woken up yet.
See the cost
It's worth waiting for. We do think hearing the music is so important, which is one of the reasons I mentioned you. Okay, here we go. There we go. Dr. Slayton and I founded the society in 2017, and our first concert was held at St. George's, where Burley had a 52-year soloist career. Oh, sorry. It's not allowing me to have a cursor. Just scroll down there. Yeah, that's well, our first concert, which was held at St. George's, combined art song performance and presentations to both ground Burley historically and musically in the American canon. Our second year of programming, we paired the orchestral work of Samuel Coleridge Taylor and solos from Hiawatha with Burley's orchestrated versions of the spiritual to show the connection and work they were doing together and their friendship, which they were fighting to institutionalize their own work. No, it's okay. It's about live performance. It doesn't go well all the time. That's right. Okay, I think I can I'll use my script so I don't have to need the cursor so much. But anyway, so our work is grounded in producing work of underrepresented artists and giving performers opportunity to be a part of that. Our concert in this year we brought the Fisk Jubilee Singers to Carnegie Hall. And then afterwards, the next day, we had our first conference situating Burley and Ella Shepherd as trailblazers in the Gilded Age. We had many revered scholars at the event, including Jean Snyder, Burley's biographer, who's here today, Daphne Brooks, Louise Toppin, and Chrislinda Gregory. But we also included presentations by undergraduates from Fisk and St. Olave's College and baritone Kenneth Overton. We were especially proud to host a panel composed of descendants from the Burley and Shepherd family, as well as those of W.C. Handy, J. Rosamund Johnson, Bob Cole, and Matthew Kennedy. Our fourth season will premiere The Burley, a vocal competition. Through all its successes, it was Burley's singing voice that opened doors and challenged racist ideology and changed the hearts of his listeners. The Burley will encourage others to pursue global reach with their singing, as Burley did. The competition will foster a spirit among today's singers, regardless of age. We'll have all age categories. And it will be held in the South Bronx, where Burley lived for much of his New York City career. We are proud to decenter Manhattan for classical music production and honor Burley's home. Looking forward, we are hoping to collaborate with partners in both the US and in Europe, and to produce world-class recordings of Burley's music along with those of his contemporaries and proteges and modern composers and performers who follow in his path. And finally, in closing, the Burley Society is committed to instituting new ways forward in protecting archives, broadening repertoire materials, creating audience experience, expanding historical imagination around American music, while giving musicians the chance to bring Black art music to new spaces and new audiences. And we're going to end with an offering that we have from our May 8th concert. From Song Came Symphony, it's William Grant Still's 1940 oratorio, and they lynched him on a tree. Lucia Bradford, soloist.
Can we play it later?
Sure. If anyone would like to hear it, just so you know, it has not been heard since 1957. It's 18 minutes long. If anyone wants to listen to it after, I'm happy to play it. It's extraordinary.
Is it on your society?
It is on the society webpage and our YouTube channel. It's something we really aspire to record as well.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Christine Finn, who's an active performer, an educator, and an arts administrator, and who was here to talk to us about her work in the Amson Foundation. Since 2009, she managed the Concept of Song of America, and now she's the managing director of the Thomas Hampson Foundation. And this is an organization that creates platforms promoting intercultural dialogue through classical art music. And so she's here to tell us more about it. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you so much. Thanks for having us. Yeah, exactly. I'm the managing director of Thomas Hampson's Foundation. And the foundation was founded in 2003 by Thomas and incorporated in 2005. And it was basically founded because Thomas had so many projects that he was working on with theater and art song and history. So the mission of the foundation is to use classic song, which is art song, plus songs that are not pop songs, but incorporate classic texts from a society, from a culture, from that means it includes Stephen Foster, it includes spirituals, it includes things beyond just specifically poetry set to music, to provide a cultural and historical context. So the mission is that songs are basically like pages of a diary, so that you understand what the composer was experiencing and going through when he wrote that song, the same for the poet and the same for that special piece of art, which is the song, which combines poetry and music. So we have lots of different projects. There are many that do not involve American song, but basically use the same thesis to tell a story of history and culture through music, through art song. But our biggest project is Song of America, and that has several different components. The biggest one is the Song of America website, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And we catalog American composers, American poets and writers, and then songs as well. So we have about 250 composers on there. We have about 350 poets and writers, and then thousands of songs, of course. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, as many of you already know. And on the website, we also have a timeline. We have a library that has recommendations for books. It has essays, online resources, etc. We have news about American song and events. And then we have our radio series, which is a 13-program series that we produced with WFMT Chicago. And it is, let's see, we have lots of different programs, including some that are very important for African American music, such as Champions of American Song. There is No Gender in Music, and of course, Langston Hughes and the Harlem Renaissance, songs we've always sung. I really encourage you to give this series a listen if you haven't yet, and use it with your students. It is aimed at the general public, so it is for people who are not necessarily musicians, but just want to understand cultural and historical context through song. We really try and make sure that we play every song in its completeness in the program and not just kind of play excerpts, because we feel it's very important. So it's about 40 minutes of music and about 20 minutes of talking in each hour-long program. And then we have another branch of the Song of America project, which is our For Educators section. And that's part of our Song of America curriculum initiative, which is to bring classic art song into K through 12 classrooms to teach different subjects beyond just music. So especially social studies and language arts, but we would also like to branch into kind of the STEM areas of science and technology as well. So we have done several different workshops with K through 12 educators since 2015, when we launched the curriculum initiative here, actually in this room, with UMS and with University of Michigan. And since then, we've done workshops with Carnegie Hall, with the New York City Department of Education, which had 400 teachers, and with LA Opera, with Songfest in California, with Spokane Symphony, and in Chicago, we've done some things as well. And we've created lesson plans. So you can take a look at these. These are things that teachers could come and just take directly from the website. You don't pay. They are developed by actual educators and for all different grade levels, and at the moment, just these 3 different subject areas. For instance, we have, let's see, Langston Hughes in geography. This is a really great one that's recommended for AP US history. And it uses a lot of, as you can see, it uses text from The Crisis, and it used The Negro Speaks of Rivers as the main song. And you can also, dig deeper in every kind of way with these kinds of, with our lesson plans. And I would just like to invite 2 of our Song of America master teachers, who are also sitting up here, Caroline Helton and Emery Stevens. They have helped lead some of the workshops, to just say a few things, just 1 minute each, about what's I know we're on the clock, about what's going on. But I just want to stress that what is so wonderful about the workshops is that many of these teachers have never heard a live classical singer in their lives. Right? They really have, they don't know what this voice sounds like. And they always say that is the most important part of these workshops, is that we have real singers who are also scholars, but who can really sing this stuff, come in and perform the songs. And that's what gets the teachers moving and going and saying, yeah, I want to share this with my students. They can understand these subjects better when they listen to these art songs, and it stays in their brain. Music stays with us, as we all know. So they will remember that song, and they will remember certain concepts. You guys just want to say one or 2 things?
Well, I wanted to say that I'm honored to be a part of this project, because for a lot of schools, I was a middle school teacher, and we don't have a lot of resources. And having organizations that reach out and offer lesson plans and things that we can sort of use in the classroom that are really user-friendly and that you can use right away. And some of the teachers walk away from these workshops and have things that they can use right away when they go back in the classroom. And some of the things that you see them as they're looking at us singing, and they're thinking about things that they can actually bring back and use. And so it's a really transformative experience, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
And, okay, I'm loud, okay. I'm also certainly honored to be a part of this, because I'm working with Christy, who knows so much about the structure of the organization and the literature. Working with Emery, who is, of course, a wonderful singer, but an experienced middle school teacher. Susan Key, another musicologist with education background, has also been a master teacher and part of this process. I'm just a college professor. And so it's great to be in this team work. But because we're working with adults who are instructing K through 12 students, my job in this is to sort of explain exactly what art song is, and one of the ways that we do that is we actually have them do text study in groups. So they work through and form an individual relationship with the idea that art song is text and music. And so they form ideas about the poetry, and then we perform the songs for them, and it turns out to be an extremely powerful experience as they process their ideas from the text and hear what the composer said. And then we also have a conversation about what it means to have a diverse group of artists interpreting this music, and what the conversations that are going to arise from having permission from all sides to perform this music. So that's what I feel like we bring as a team to this project.
Thanks. I know we have to wrap it up, but I would like to just say, please come and speak to me about anything that you would like me to put on the Song of America website. That can include your scholarly materials, that can include your recordings. For composers, obviously, profiles and everything about your music. At the moment, I'm the only person who's working on it, but we are planning next year to be having a team working on the website. So then things can actually speed up and I don't have to just manage the foundation, but we can also do some more work on the website. So thank you very much. Looking forward to talking to everyone.
I'm amazed that the website's so fancy. It would come from one person. Congratulations. Wonderful. So our next speaker is Daryl Taylor, and he has a distinguished international career as a singer in opera, oratorio, and art song, but is speaking to us from California. In fact, is going to be fed into the room, so to speak about his the African American Art Song Alliance, of which he is a founder.
And I know that my colleague is going to have to slip out and teach a class, but I'd like to thank my colleague Gabriela Cruz from our academic faculty and all the moderators, or most of them are coming from our academic faculty, so I appreciate them being a part. So would you please give her a round of applause? I'm sure her students would not appreciate it if she didn't show up.
It's a large class.
On Central Campus. Give us a minute. Daryl and I are talking. He's trying to, he said, okay, it's just audio, I'm on hold. And while we're trying to connect him, because I'm going to take over a little bit as moderator, I wanted to say that the reason that I wanted to put this panel together was partly to bring people who are doing different things. As you can see, it was interesting to be listening to Lynn Foote. When you think of the Burleigh Society, because Burleigh's long been dead, you don't expect such energy necessarily, or think to go to a place like the Burleigh Society to find what's happening in the future and all the connections that they are doing to bring us forward. And I just wanted to bring as well a young organization. I met him via an email that he asked me, and I said, it's dangerous to email me because I'm going to say, I want you to come and do some work. But to support a young organization and connect them into the fold and to let all of us see what else is going on out there. Christy, I've met her virtually, but to meet her for the first time, again, these are all wonderful connections and energy that people are bringing. The second half of the panel after Daryl, are we up? Yep. He said he's on hold. The second half of the panel will be talking about resources and introducing you to a little bit more of some of the new materials that have come out. In addition, these were larger organizations, but individuals that are also doing some work. Should I go with him? Randy, do you mind if I jump to yours for a minute, because can we show her hope that she's the last one? So, and I'm sorry I don't have your bio as a part of it, but Randy has been doing some I can try to talk extemporaneous a little bit. Randy has been doing some wonderful work with the spiritual and has created the database on the spiritual, and we're so proud. For those of you that know the George Shirley competition, this is this year's high school winner, who was last year's second place winner, featured on the cover. That's from last year, even though that's how she looked, because she looked differently this year. But Randy will talk to us about what she's been doing. So National Association of Teachers of Singing, I'm sorry, I belong to two organizations that start with National Association. I almost said the wrong one. Nat has been doing a wonderful series of So You Want to Sing. And I'm so proud that Randy's book has become the next in the 15th in the series.
18.
18 in their series. So check out the whole series. It's things like musical theater, and so you want to sing. I can't remember what all of them are, but gospel and some other things. But this is the one most related to what we're doing.
Well, good morning. My name is Brandy Jones. I am, unlike, I guess a number of people here, I am a singer, but I'm also, I've worked in the library for 25 years now. And my interest has been pretty much performing and research. I got into spirituals, I guess, at Florida State. I happened to be there the one semester that Dominique Renee DeLerma was there. And just like everybody, I guess, who came into his orbit, I got pulled off into a different world than I'd originally planned. That said, the idea of writing about spirituals is something that I've been involved in for all of those years. And so I was rather surprised when out of the blue I get a call from a gentleman named Matthew Hope, who was his editor of the series So You Want to Sing. Daryl Taylor, who we're trying to connect up with, had suggested that he contact me and see if I might be interested in writing a book on spirituals for this series. The series is actually something that NATS has been putting together. I think their first issue came out in 2014. They've covered jazz and gospel and commercial music, light theater, and so forth and so on. It's been a very wide-ranging approach. And what their idea was, it was very simply to expose teachers and students to the notion of expanding beyond the standard repertoire. And they wanted to give them resources and access to thought process from people who have actually performed professionally or researched it, are professionals in those areas. The Art of the Negro Spiritual has my name on the front of the cover, as you can see, but it is really majorly a collaborative vehicle. I drew upon a number of people, including some of the panelists here, from the very beginning. The foreword for the book, Dr. Shirley was very generous with his time and contributions to write that, setting me up as oh my Lord, am I going to have to meet these standards that he has set? And I guess I'll have to get judgment on whether or not I make this, or whether we made those standards. But there are a number of contributors to this book. In fact, 2 more contributors are sitting right beside me, and I'm going to ask them to talk about their contribution to the book in just a second. I wanted to just mention how they got involved. There was a connection, and I'm sure that there's a story behind that I'm not going to try to explain, but I'll let them tell you the 2 different points they choose. Where the idea of talking about African American art song was brought to the attention of NATS and Rowman and Littlefield, which is the publisher of the book. And they said, well, we would really love to contribute some information about African American art song to the series. Well, by this point, the series was nearly done, and they said, well, the closest book that we have still coming out was the one on spirituals. They contacted me and asked me if I was willing to include it. My response to them was, they need to have their own book. There's no way they're going to cover this subject in 1 chapter. They did it anyway. So what I'm going to do is talk about it.
We attempted to. There's so much to cover, but Caroline and I have been involved in a project called Singing Down the Barriers, and it actually started right here at University of Michigan. I was a doctoral student in 2004, and it was during a doctoral seminar in which I was presenting on the performance practice of spirituals. I was only African American in the room. There were my other colleagues, 1 Asian student, the rest were white students. And I was saying and encouraging them after the presentation to take a look at these songs, these spirituals, these are wonderful songs, and program them on your recitals. And they were like, no, we can't do that. We're not Black. So this began the conversation, and this began sort of the project in which we were looking at what are the barriers, what are people's, what's standing in the way of all ethnicities joining in and singing this repertoire. And so we started basically with some focus groups here with some students in 2005, I'm sorry. We did African American art song survey and sent that out to about over 250 recipients of that survey, and came back with some really wonderful information that prompted us to do even more. And then so we started also doing workshops with college students and universities, and taking what we learned from the survey about fears of inauthenticity or barriers in terms of where to find music or where to find performance practice examples, or can we actually sing this music? Do we have permission? So these are all the things that sort of came out of the survey, and then we started exploring further with students as they're singing these songs with their students, with their teachers actually. And so that really was I think the impetus that helped us to move forward.
So the model we developed, because we decided early on that art song and singing art song by African American composers was an absolutely transformative way to start having meaningful dialogue in diverse groups of people, but specifically college-age singers. Because when one performs a piece, as for the performers in the room, you know that you have to empathize with the character that you're singing. And we also know that recital singing is the best vehicle for taking on very varied, thank you, personas. You know, we don't have the expectation of verisimilitude. We can be whoever we want to be in the art song context. So there's no other medium that lends itself to this kind of transformative empathy. And and when we had our first focus group, we realized that we had a diverse group of students, and they came up with some really incredible insights that we based our ongoing work on. So when we go to colleges and we do a lecture recital where we inform people about the history, and so we're both singing, we incorporate singers from the area. So that leads to our next goal, is to be an example. So our practical approach is to walk the walk and elicit these emotions and have conversations in which people observe a diverse community really engaging with this repertoire. And so we are very, very grateful to Randy for letting us sort of contextualize art song by African American composers within the spirituals, within the whole arc of the spiritual development. And hopefully people will see art song and spirituals in context and reach out and program all of this material on recitals. Thank you very much, Randy.
I also wanted to mention some of the other people who collaborated. One of the things that, for those of you who have studied spirituals, it is absolutely essential that you have a very strong relationship with your accompanist, with the person with whom you're collaborating. It can make the difference between a performance that's just sort of stayed and one that really is dynamic, because the two of you are working together and you know that music, you know what that person is going to do, they know what to expect, etc. And so I was fortunate to be able to talk Casey Grofars into writing the chapter on collaborative performance, which I think is very helpful to those on both ends, both the singer and the pianist, to get a better sense of what sort of expectations there are. We were able to get articles, one by Barbara Steinhaus on actually teaching the spiritual in the voice studio. And then 3, talking about choral music and its impact as far as the Negro spiritual is concerned. There were also two chapters that are uniform throughout the series, basically because they wanted to talk about the vocal instrument. And they wanted to make sure that each book covered that, no matter which book you happen to purchase from this series. I was asked to mention, talk about a challenge that maybe one might have had in the process. And my challenge, strangely enough, was because this was my first book. I had no idea of the demands on time and so forth. But then the strange thing was that I ended up turning in 50% more book than they wanted to do. So there's a lot to talk about. It's an amazing subject. And I'm hoping that this will be an encouragement to those of you who are thinking about maybe taking the spiritual and writing more about it, to please do so. But I ended up, fortunately, I was able to put almost all of that up as appendices that are available online for free. The book isn't, but the appendices are. But then I'm also, Emery and I are working on a secondary appendices on art songs that are available by African Americans that are available in a variety of anthologies. I did the same thing for spirituals in a number of anthologies. Everybody knows about Willis Patterson's book, I hope. You do? Books. Books. Excuse me. Correction, books. But, well, I'm sorry, I'm talking about spirituals. Okay, so, but the thing was that there are others who have included spirituals and art song in their anthologies, and I wanted to make sure that people were aware of them. So those appendices are out there, and they're being available, indexed, so that when you actually, the index in the book will be only for the book. The indices and so forth are all included in an expanded appendices that will be available online shortly.
And your database is, what's the call to get your database?
The Art of the Negro Spiritual. So you can go in there and of course if you search, I think you would be able to find the book. But and there are also there's a discount sheet that's available at the registration desk. Give you a 30% discount if you want to buy a book for less. Thank you so much.
This book is coming out in November?
Yes, it's you can pre-order either directly online, use the sheet. Amazon has it available. Rowman and Littlefield has been a fantastic publisher, both as far as helping me with get my first book done, and as far as helping to get the word out about it. So I am very happy to see that they have done an amazing job of publicizing it. So.
Thank you very much. Our next presenter is Daryl Taylor, who to those of us dealing with African American art song needs no introduction, but he does have some degrees from Michigan, and then founded the African American Art Song Alliance as a way of bringing us together to, again, talk about African American art, music, and spirituals and new works. He does a conference every 5 years, although we keep nudging him to do it a little more frequently. No, I know he can hear me. I'm his big sister. I finished a little bit before him, so I can say that to him. But Daryl has also been an important voice in terms of bringing forward some new composers. He's been a great champion of African American composers and new works, and particularly he did the world premiere recording of Leslie Adams' art songs that we all use today, and he did the recording of Robert Owens. So it has been a pleasure, and we will let him introduce himself. Is he ready?
I think I am.
Yay! Okay, thanks, Daryl.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can. Take it away.
On delay, so I can't see what's on the screen.
We can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead and talk.
Oh, okay, very good, all right. Well, thank you so much. It's lovely to be with you digitally. I'm so sorry that I'm this disembodied entity that's kind of a floating voice of God, participant in the conference. Gosh, that sounded awful, but Louise kind of gave most of the spiel about how the Alliance came to being. I founded the African American Alliance in 1997, shortly after completing my graduate studies. I had been under the support of George Shirley and Willis Patterson, both of whom provided a lot of resources and direction. I had done an article on African American art song as an independent study with Willis Patterson, and he encouraged me to submit it to the Journal of Singing. That included then an appendix of publisher information, etc., and that became then the nexus of how of the African American Art Song Alliance. Founded in 1997, I then started our first conference in 2007 at the University of California in Irvine. I'm a one-man band, so to speak, and so doing it every year, as much as I'd like to, Louise, you know exactly what my spiel is on that. You know, I'm happy to come to your school, and not just the University of Michigan, anywhere else, and do that. But the resources are quite significant to put that on, not the least, which is manpower. The next one is scheduled for 2022. That will be our 25th anniversary. I cannot believe it will be 25 years, but it will be our 25th anniversary of the Alliance, and I'm already at work on trying to put various aspects together for the conference. The African American Art Song Alliance one is a fairly large umbrella. While it has in its moniker art song, it also encompasses oratorio and opera, and art song then is to include the notion of spirituals, newly composed spirituals, as well as traditional arrangements. It encompasses composers and performers, both vocalists and instrumentalists and scholars. And on the African American Art Song Alliance, I don't know, I'm going to make the assumption some people streaming in this might be their first time being introduced to the Alliance. The website is artsongalliance.org. And there's also a very lively Facebook discussion group. If you go to Facebook and you put in Art Song Alliance, it will pull it up, or African American Art Song, it should populate. That forum is open to everyone, though participation, if you want to add some commentary, you have to be added as a member. And there's a bit of a firewall for that, but it's a fairly easy one to go through. And there's a YouTube channel now for the African American Art Song Alliance, youtube.com/Art Song Alliance. And a good portion of that came from the largesse of the Hamsong Foundation that provided support for the video recording of the last conference, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to video record and live stream the conference in 2022. Gosh, I mean, I don't want to be a blowhard. I have a whole lot of stuff that I can say about African American art song, but I think that's pretty much the introduction of it. It came about as a an effort when both Louise and I were young scholars and we were traipsing about the country doing lecture recitals hither and yon. We had a phone conversation. I remember it. We had a phone conversation, and I said, Louise, I don't want to be in competition with you. You're my mentor. You're my big sister, and I'd much rather coalesce our resources, galvanize our resources, and be stronger for it. And we talked about the necessity for making sure that anytime something is done representing African American art song, it has to be done at a very high level. If not, then people with only a passing interest which could easily suggest that there was something wrong with the repertoire and not entirely with the performance. And so we kind of set up some standards. We said, well, what should our standards be? And in the early iterations of the African American Art Song Alliance, the mission statement put those standards forward and said, this is what we stand for. And it's the thing is kind of taken a life of its own. I'm really very happy. One of the major standards that Louise and I stood by was this notion that you cannot, in this, or at least in the early stages of this, we could not just sit on repertoire, hold it as our own. I'm the only person that can perform these songs. Or so we said, no. Whoever heard of one recording or one performance of Mozart or one? It's just not possible. You have to have many performances, many voices coming at repertoire in order for it to enter into the psyche and into the level of mainstream repertoire. So we want to encourage as many performances as possible, and my performance will never duplicate what someone else does. No matter how much I try, I may be able to provide a certain cadence that I've heard before, but I hopefully lend my own artistic distinction to whatever it is that I do. And I think that's probably as much as I'm going to say for the time being. Thank you very much.
Thank you. He's going to stay on the line with us? I hope, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Can you mute maybe? Is that what you should do? You should mute, okay. And we'll do our last two presentations and then we'll start talking, have a conversation with some questions. Our next presenter will be Marcia Porter. Marcia Porter is a professor of voice at Florida State University. She is a much sought after clinician and has presented masterclasses throughout the Midwestern and Southeastern United States, as well as many places. She's been a Fulbright scholar, and she's been doing a lot of wonderful work and research on Brazilian music. And she and I have had some talk about Afro-Brazilian particularly, which is why I wanted her to be a part of this panel. She has a book on Portuguese. I'm sorry, the title is escaping me off the top of my head. Singing in Brazilian Portuguese, which is a wonderful resource to teachers, and she has information, so I'm going to turn it over to her so that she can tell us more.
Good morning. I am so excited to stand up. You just don't know. So first, thank you so much, Louise, for including me in this discussion. And I veer a little bit different from the research that's been talked about so far. But I'll have to tell you that I also teach at Florida State a class on contemporary vocal literature. And last fall, oh, sorry, there you go, sorry. That is loud. Last fall, the class centered on women composers, Black women composers, specifically after 1950. So I have used all of these wonderful people's work in my own work in teaching that particular class. So I think I just click on next. Oh, perfect. Okay, so I will talk to you about my research path. So last night I sang 3 songs of the Afro-Brazilian composer Carlos Gomes. And the first song was in Italian, it was Ave Maria. The second song was Quem Sabe, and it was in Portuguese. And the third song was Conselhos, also in Portuguese. So afterwards, someone said, well, how did you get interested in this? How did you start this? I thought, well, that's a wonderful confirmation of the presentation that I already prepared, so yay. So everything started for me here at the University of Michigan, specifically in my second doctoral recital. Professor Shirley was on my committee. Caroline Helton was a fabulous mentor. I also took her seminar, her doctoral seminar. And that class helped me figure out how to prepare lecture recitals, and be able to talk about the work that I was doing. So the second recital of mine was all nationalism and music. So I did a group of songs in Czech, I did a group of songs in Russian, I did some spirituals, and I did 5 Brazilian songs that were given to me by Martin Katz, who was also on my committee. And he said, well, Marcia, what about these? Have you heard of these? I said, no. He says, oh, okay, well, learn them. I said, oh, okay. How should I go about the diction, please? And because the songs weren't recorded that I knew of. And so there was a student also in my class, Ricardo Ballesteiro, who was from São Paulo. And he says, well, Marcia, I can help you with that. I said, oh, okay, good. I could use all the help you are willing to offer. So he handed me a single piece of paper with typed, and so it wasn't a computer printout, it was something that had been typed on a typewriter that he had been toting around for years. And I said, Luis, what is this? He says, oh, well, these are the diction rules. That's it. He says, and then I will speak the text and you'll just learn it that way. I said, okay. So I did. So that was how that started. And then right after before I finished with my degree here, I got a call from FSU, Florida State. Well, we're looking for someone. Okay. And I said, oh, Caroline, could you help me, please? I have an interview. And so she helped me with that process, and she did mock interview questions for me and listened to me give my spiel and what was my research all about and everything. And so in my first year at FSU, we have what's called a FIAP, First Year Assistant Professor Program. And so it's a grant source that allows you to go out and do whatever you want. And so I said, I've always loved Brazilian music, and I know 5 songs, aside from the Villa-Lobos Bachianas Brasileiras that almost every soprano knows, or at least whatever, they have heard of it, yes. So I said, well, I want to go to Brazil and study this music. Okay, so I went, and Luis had moved back home to São Paulo, so I had a host. So he took me around the city and showed me all the libraries. I love libraries. I visit every place I go, I find a library, and I just go and spend hours. And then I go to the mall. So after my first year at Florida State, several years later, I'd always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do a Fulbright grant or a Fulbright scholarship. And I thought, oh, I can't do it now. I'm teaching, And we had at FSU, there was an informational session about Fulbright scholars. So now, okay, I'll go and I'll see what can happen from that. And I'll get to the rest of it in a second. So the next part of my research, so after here, then the first year in Brazil, then a semester in Brazil, and now I'm doing recitals that primarily focus on Brazilian music, including a few Afro-Brazilian composers, and it all led to the book, which also has a University of Michigan tie. Okay, so the group of 5 songs, this one is my favorite.
San João rompeu uma gaita raiva quando tocou a bacinella. Todos os santos tocam gaita raiva, tocam quatro aqui na terra.
Quite early. So that's the first page of this song. And if you didn't catch, it's actually a kid's song. So you know that Rosanna, Dana, Fafana, Mana, you know that name song? That's basically what this is. It plays around with the rhythm of the text. And which is also important because in Brazilian music, although there are very few Afro-Brazilian composers that have been documented in their music you can actually find, in a lot of the music there are Africanisms. And one of the Africanisms is rhythm, yes? And another is the polyrhythmic layering that goes on in the music. And then the other is the text itself. Sometimes the words are from African culture, okay? So these 5 songs are how I got started. And the very first one, Okinimba, is actually a song to an African deity. And the person is saying, I want to go back home. I don't know what this place is. And these particular songs were tricky to translate because quite a few of them incorporate African words. So as I was talking to Luis, these were the songs that he taught me. And as I was talking to him about them, I said, well, Luis, how do you translate this word? He says, I can't translate it for you because it's actually African dialect. I said, oh, okay. So even now in researching some of the words, you know, I'm like, oh, that's what that means. Oh, that is so cool. You know, so, and I have a friend who is studying Orisha, and she, which is an African influenced kind of religion. And some of these songs, not only these, but others that I have studied and sung, include imagery from Orisha tradition. So my Fulbright semester in Brazil, these are a hodgepodge of pictures of things that I did while I was there. The farthest one is the class that I co-taught on, oh no, that was a master class that I gave to Brazilian singers, the very far one, sorry, right, very far right, the big group picture. And what was so exciting about that class was the master class, they all sang something in Portuguese. Well, they thought, well, what can you tell us about singing in Portuguese? Well, I can tell you that I didn't understand that because you're singing in a dialect and you should not be singing this in a dialect. So when we sing in Brazilian Portuguese, just like when we sing in French or German or English even, unless the composer specifically says use a dialect, you should use the high form of that language, you know. So it was so interesting to have the master class with them and to teach them in Portuguese about some of their own literature. And they thought, are you Brazilian? No, eu sou americana. They're like, what? Yes. So that was a lot of fun. The picture down at the bottom here, I'm in the pink jacket. The gentleman standing right next to me, that's Ricardo Ballesteros. While he was here, he went by Luis because his name is spelled like Ricardo, but R, initial R in Portuguese sounds almost like an H, so it's Ricardo, and the O at the end sounds like a U. So he says, okay, no one's ever going to get that, so I'll just go by Luis. So that picture was an interview we had for a recital that we were doing in another city. And the broadcaster says, okay, well, here are the questions. I know you don't speak Portuguese. No, eu falo. And so I said, no, I do. And so I was able to hold a conversation and the interview in Portuguese, and it was so exciting. The center picture is a student that I taught. The beauty of our relationship is she's moved to America now, but she sang for me. It was a graduate literature class that I taught with Ricardo, and this is our class. And Jasani sang for me spirituals in Portuguese, and I just cried. I thought, oh my gosh, this is just incredible. The picture on top with the two little people, those are my kids, and 2 boys. They were 3 and 6 at the time. And I thought, I can't go on a Fulbright semester because I have children. Ha ha, Ron. Fulbright encourages you to take your family. So my children were able to spend 6 months in Brazil with me. And my oldest was 6 at the time, so he was in kindergarten. So I tried to homeschool him. Oh my gosh, that was so stressful. But you know, when you're in kindergarten, what are you learning? You're learning your colors and you're learning other things. My child had the added benefit of learning about being a global citizen. So even to this day, you know, he talks about time in Brazil and, you know, playing with the kids on the playground. We went to the library every Sunday. I found things for them to do. I took them around with me all the time. And I remember distinctly one time he was on the playground, he said, and a kid was doing something he didn't like. He knew very few Portuguese words. He turned to me and he said, "Mommy, I need more words. I need more Portuguese words." I said, okay. So now my research has evolved into all of these recitals and things that I do around. So the one on the end, I'm singing at University of São Paulo recital with Luis. The one on the bottom, we were doing a recital at Alphaville in Brazil. And so the picture that I had in the jacket at the bottom, the interview picture, that was for the recital on the bottom right. The Art Song Festival that happens, Song Consortium that happens annually in, it's moving around now. But my colleague who runs that was a student here at the University of Michigan, so Chris Meerdink. And so he invited me several years ago to do a recital of Brazilian Portuguese music. And I'll be going back this year to do a recital of African-American art songs. So that's exciting. Lynn Compass, also University of Michigan grad. She played every single recital I ever did here. And she teaches at the University of South Carolina, and we still collaborate a lot. The recital at the top was actually in Bulgaria, and that recital included art songs of African-American composers as well as Brazilian music. So that there's the relationship. Every recital I do has those two components on it, and then whatever else I want to sing. But I make sure to include songs of Black composers and Brazilian composers. And then that led to an article for the Nats Journal of Singing. That came about by a former student of mine from Florida State. And she says, "Well, Dr. Porter, I know that you're doing some work on Brazilian song and diction. Would you be interested in?" Okay, what do I have to do? You know, and like Randy, I didn't realize, you know, the time commitment, you know, and I'm kind of I am A-type personality, and I try not to be a perfectionist because there is no such thing, and it causes me great stress, but there you go. And then that led to, this picture is at a Florida Music Educators Association conference where I did a poster presentation on my work. I've also done poster presentation for Nats, I've done recitals for Nats, and lectures about my work. And then it led to this book. So Singing in Brazilian Portuguese, and it is part of a series of their Singing in Languages series. The book came about on my birthday one year. So I got this call from Bennett is his last name, and he's not working with the company anymore. But anyway, so he calls me. He says, "Yeah, so I got your name from Timothy Cheek, one of my professors here, and he said that you've been doing some work on Brazilian Portuguese." I said, "Sort of, yes. What is this about?" I'm driving, right? "What is this about?" And so he says, "Well, would you be interested in?" Oh, let me pull over. I need to stop driving now so I can write what you're talking about. And so that's how the book happened. It was a wonderful birthday gift. It also caused me a lot of stress. Many nights, I told you I have 2 children, so how did I write? When did I write? When they went to bed, and on Fridays. Friday was my day. I didn't schedule appointments, I didn't go to schools, I didn't teach, I didn't practice. Friday and late at night. So some nights I didn't sleep, you know, because I would stay up writing. and my eyes were crossing, and I'm like, I have no idea what I just wrote, so I should stop now, you know. But I'll tell you a little bit about the book. So the beginning of the book talks about the diction itself and how to say and when you should say and when you shouldn't say. There is a series of recordings. So remember I told you about the student who sang spirituals to me? Well, she is one of the voices that you will hear actually speaking some of the diction, because I thought it was important to have two native speakers so that you could hear the sounds. So there's also a table that has all of the different vowel sounds that one can make, all of the different consonant sounds. And then the second half of the book has information about various composers and then IPA. And I thought, you know, there are certain ways that other books have written the IPA. They usually have the translation on the top and all, you know, it's in a different order. But my brain works that you see the text, and then I like to see the IPA underneath the text, not above the text, because I don't read it that way. And then I have the translation, the word for word, and then you have the poetic version, because as we know, the word for word doesn't always translate into a nice sentence, a nice sentence structure. So, and that was a quibble I had with the editor. No, well, you have to write it this way. I said, but my brain doesn't work that way, and I'm going to struggle to do it for you that way. And most singers that I know prefer to read it down this way, because we don't have enough space between the text and the music to write all that information, because we are now going to transfer it in the score. So seeing it as it would lay out on a page musically works best. So that's my spiel, that's what I do, and how does it tie into this discussion? Again, while there are only a few Afro-Brazilian composers, the idea of Africanisms in the music is important, and it's something that we as singers, we as scholars can latch on to, because sometimes you lose that sense of Africanism in other kinds of music. Yes, and I also teach a class, music appreciation, and the first thing I talk to my students about is Africanism in all music and how we find it. It's in the rhythm, it's in the use of the words, it's in the color of the sound, but the first thing for me is always the rhythm. So that's, if you have any questions or if you're interested in more of what I do, please do come and talk to me. Thank you.
Our last two presenters are myself. By the way, my name is Louise Toppin. I organize the conference. Thank you. And I'm a professor here at Michigan. And my first, while she's getting up our PowerPoint really quickly, my first experience with African American music was here with a lot of the people in this room. I came to Michigan as George Shirley's first doctoral student in 1800. That's just like to me, not to you. He came in the 90s. I came, 1800.
Gave her an F.
He did threaten to fail me so I wouldn't graduate. I remember that because I zoomed out in 3 years, and he said, I'm going to keep her here. I'm going to fail you. But he didn't. Thank you, because my parents would not have been happy with you. But the exposure to having this wonderful man as a teacher, and I also worked for Willis Patterson. So between the two, I actually organized Willis Patterson's files the first time, and those that know him, he would take a score out and put it on the piano in any place in his office. And then at the end of the year, he said, Louise, organize my office and put my music back in the files. And I'm looking at, why didn't you take it to the file cabinet instead of just, so that was my job. But it fascinated me as I was picking up each score, I began to look at them and pay attention to them. And so I came up with this filing system. And then I also said,
I'm gonna copy some because I'm afraid he's gonna lose some of these because he keeps putting them, in strange places. And so, but that also, and the other impetus from here was Raylinda Brown was on the faculty at that time, and she was teaching a course in African American music. And so I took the course, and my father's a well-known historian in African American history, so I knew a lot about African American music from that standpoint. But it was so eye-opening taking her course and intriguing to me to put what I already loved and knew from my father and this music that I was seeing from Willis Patterson and Mr. Shirley, because I still call him Mr. Shirley 30 years later. But he had some wonderful music from Coleridge Taylor Perkinson and some other people that he had been friends with. And so that began my journey. And my third dissertation recital here was African American composers. Actually, I even had some on my second recital with George Walker. And I think it was somewhat unusual for Michigan to begin to see a recital of this type, because I pulled things that my committee didn't know. I found repertoire and got to know the composers through that. So what I've done is I have spent my journey since then teaching, singing, working on this repertoire. For my first job, full job at ECU, I started doing certain things and all the way up to this time here in Michigan. I've done conferences before at Chapel Hill when I was their director of the music program. And we did some conferences on African American music, and I realized it is important to have a space and a time for people of like minds to come together and talk about this repertoire. There are many people doing some wonderful work in African American music. They either don't know each other, which became the case and very clear as I began meeting and talking to different people electronically, or they do know each other, but they're not aware. I learned some things listening to, I didn't know what you two were up to, and I'm gonna show you all something that I'm doing. So it's important to share, because then we also know, are we redoubling efforts? Are we making sure that things are getting out there as they should? In 1997, I was given the organization Videmus. I did not found it, but I was given it. Videmus, which is to see and to bring to light, was a Boston-based organization, 1986. It was founded by Vivian Taylor to do performances of African-American women and underrepresented composers. It was given to me in 97, I think. And I decided to make it more than a Boston-based group, because I didn't live in Boston, first of all. So I was in North Carolina, and I decided it needed to be broader. And so I began to work on, can you get to the names? Yes. I began to work on not only doing recordings that were historic, but also recordings of new music and new works. There's our conference in the bottom, as many of you who registered, if you forgot to register, it's still there. But we've been doing educational programs in North Carolina. We used to do some things in the public schools with African-American composers. I'd get grants and I'd bring composers in and artists in to work with them. We did one for Pitt County, in which we brought all the string students for the entire county of Pitt County. Actually, you were my assistant. I think way back, this is a former undergrad student of mine who's actually here with her doctorate now. And so we brought all these kids in, and every school child was learning a string quartet by William Grant Still in the entire county. And then we went to Wake County, which is the Raleigh-Durham area. And so we worked that way. So we used to do educational programs. We've done concerts all over. We do recordings, which I'm not doing as many recordings now as I used to, because we started doing recordings to get people to have a way of recording this, of hearing this music. I'm so thrilled now watching YouTube and seeing the number of people who are either doing recordings or performing the music. I feel that's something I can move away from. And so I have. So I'm always trying to find what's next. So we did the first William Grant Still opera because I realized nobody had recorded any of them commercially. So we went that direction and started to find some historic pieces. We've also expanded into the George Shirley competition, because my next thing was, I said, okay, I've been doing this a minute.
how do I leave a lasting legacy of this music continuing? Part of it, sure, my recordings are there, the lectures are there. I teach the African American Art Song course here, which some of my students are here nodding their hands. And so we've had a great time. This has been my second year doing that, so I will continue doing that. But I founded the George Shirley competition along with George Shirley as a way of encouraging students all over the United States, all over the world now, to come and participate. And I'm gonna let Mr. Shirley speak about that in just a second. Oh, she's pulled it up, so I'll let you go ahead and speak about why you founded this competition and what we're doing. In addition to being a competition, we do master classes, and I see some friends who have been judges, and we did 6 master classes, 3 classes. So we're trying to make it a deeper experience so that it's not you just come, you compete, you go away, but you come, you learn, you are exposed to this music, and hopefully you fall in love with it as much as I do, and you're the next generation going out the door to help perpetuate this music. Mr. Shirley, and then I'll finish up.
Hi. I was first exposed to the music of African American composers when I was young. I started studying voice when I was 13. And my teacher at that time, Caucasian in Detroit, gave me some songs by Howard Swanson, which I loved. And I would sing on occasion at churches or wherever I was asked to sing. And when I started singing professionally, I chose not in my early recitals not to sing spirituals because I wanted people to get used to the fact that I was able to sing Schubert, Brahms, Strauss, Verdi. But I added the music back to my recitals because it's great music. About 10, 11 years ago, I was asked to serve as a judge for a competition in Warren, Michigan. The Verdi Opera Company, which is a small company, founded by a man named John Ceretti, hosted a competition and hosts a competition for high school students. It's focused on Italian song literature. Because John wants to keep the Italian musical vocal heritage alive. So all the students come from all over the state and they have to sing Italian art songs. And I thought to myself, I'm interested in helping young people by helping them financially, giving them assistance through a competition. And I would like to see a competition that focuses on the art songs and the operatic arias of African American composers. So I made the mistake of mentioning this to Louise Toppin. Who happens to be one of the most organized individuals I've ever met in my life. Juggle 300 balls and catch them all without having any of them fall to the ground. And she said, yeah. The next thing I knew, 10 years ago, we hosted our first competition in Detroit at one of the churches. And it has grown over the years to become an international competition that has been blessed with gifts, named gifts from some of my colleagues in the profession, and has the promise of continuing to grow in this direction. Now we started high school students, we are now in a pre-professional level. And for me, it's a dream come true. One of the great experiences that those of us who teach have is that we never know who's coming through the door and where they're going to take their intelligence, their talents, their compassion, So I'm a very blessed individual to have been able to share with students like Dr. Toppin and others what I've learned I started singing professionally in '59 after spending a year as a high school teacher in Detroit and then 3 years in the Army. But since 1959, being able to share what I've learned from that point from great colleagues that I've had the blessing of working with and from stealing from, to pass that on to young people. And to have that repaid by someone like Dr. Toppin and this phenomenal blessing of competition.
Thank you. Thank you. If anyone doesn't know, this is George Shirley, who's the first African-American tenor at the Metropolitan Opera. Yes, when he asked to put my own $1,000, that was the first prize, was my money, $1,000. But we are now up to $34,000 for 2020. At this conference, I've been promising for a while to do this, and I'm now going to show you what has been a project of mine for several years. We are launching it today with this conference as a resource for all of you. And so I'd like to go to this page. The African American Diasporic Project. Many of the faces are in the room. And to show you how this works, there's Dr. Banfield sitting right there. I saw Regina Back is in front of him. So those two are sitting right here. UC Brown is around. There are many others. But what you'll do, you go to search. And I'm just going to put in Dr. Banfield's name since he's the first one I saw. Where'd I put them? Oh, thank you. That's what happens when you have to use them. William Banfield, and you get a page that has the repertoire, that has the bio, the individual songs, the individual songs. You can also do something like Maya Angelou, and there you go. You start to see all the songs populated. I saw Brittany Boykin in the room. Is she still in it? There she is. So that's whose songs I just pulled up. She's in the room. One other thing you can do, take out the poet. I'm going to put, there goes the sopranos. So there are many ways for you to search. This is phase one of the database, and you just go to the Vidamus website now, vidamus.org, and you'll get to this page. But it begins to give you, it gives people less of an excuse of why they cannot find this repertoire, with a vision statement about what we're doing and why we're doing. That's from our competition, one of the master classes.
You see what I mean?
I decided, although I was advised to monetize it, I decided I wanted to make it free, because I want people to find this repertoire and use this repertoire. This is repertoire that I have. I started with my own repertoire, so that's over 2,000 pieces just there. So it has taken years. Actually, you were one of my assistants inputting the data. Those things that are missing, so phase one just has the records. Phase two will have recordings of each of the songs, as well as the first page of the song. So that's going to take some more manpower, obviously, to get that going. But we're also hoping that composers will begin to send the repertoire. If you see holes, if you see mistakes, because we looked at it, checked it, but there's still going to be mistakes. And that's why I've taken so long, because if I caught a mistake, I stopped them from rolling it out.
And more importantly, I thought it was a special moment to roll it out now.
Wow.
You know you just wanted to stretch, and that's all. I'm gonna actually ask you. So in our remaining minutes, can I have, are there some questions from the floor? You've gotten a sense of some of our resources we've got out here. I hope it helps to stimulate your mind, but we're trying to curate, and there's much more coming from other people. This is just scratching the surface of all that is going on. So there are a couple of microphones if people would like to ask some questions.
I don't know if this is a crazy question or not, but my name is Charles Reed from Andrews University, and in Daryl's presentation, he said new spirituals, and I didn't know if he meant new arrangements, but is it possible, are there new spirituals, not just arrangements?
Yes, there are. Dean Patterson produced another anthology a number of years ago that has new spirituals. So it is available. Who's the publisher?
It's on our website.
Well,
The Davis website. We got that too.
But people are writing new.
They're writing arrangements of new tunes, but they're not, the whole experience of spirituals. Why don't you take it?
Actually, the strange, what might be surprising to you is that spirituals existed or were created, let me rephrase, created well past the Civil War. There were people who would gather and they would, through compose, for want of a better term, new songs during church services. And if they really liked the song, if the congregation felt like it was a wonderful piece, they would actually put the basis into booklets that then when they had conventions of church groups, they would actually sing those songs and reintroduce those new songs, new spirituals during those conventions. I don't know if they still do that, but the spiritual tradition is very much a live tradition.
Can I request that everybody introduce your name and institution so the video has you?
Absolutely, thank you.
Tim Holiday, North Carolina Central University, after I finished degrees here at the University of Michigan. It's a pleasure to be back. My question is this, as a cellist, I'll use the word appropriate the Negro spiritual as well as some of the art songs of African-American composers to perform on the cello, my instrument. Is there an instrumental component to the African Diaspora Project? Yeah.
The answer is yes. We actually have operas, we have choral works, we have instrumental works, we have piano works. But again, the manpower to carefully go through each score and get that in there. We haven't done it yet, but it's actually in the first Excel sheet. We already have the instrumental things done. We just haven't done that next step of incorporating here. But that's where we're going. We're probably going to try to get vocal music done first, all of it, including choral. And Eugene Rogers here said he wants to help me with the choral part of it.
Great.
So I think we'll have it soon.
My name is Henry Plez from Chicago, Illinois. Many of us have an academic or educational basis for our interest, but there is a wider community that when we say Black music, they don't understand what we mean. And I was wondering if someone could speak to the challenges of that communication.
So I told you all that I teach a music appreciation class, and this class is for non-majors. And I teach the class in the summer, so 3 summers ago, I taught it in Spain, and last summer, the previous summer, I taught it in London, and it's a class through Florida State University. None of those students has ever studied music when they come to me. And I told you, for me, it's all about the rhythm, yes? And I always start talking to them about African drumming music, and then bring that into art songs. And so we cover a lot of territory in the class, and explaining that this is how the art song works. Even though it's a music appreciation class, some of them complain, we talk too much about classical music. Well, that's what I do. And this is what you're going to study, you know. So, but they walk away from it understanding better, not only about classical music as a whole, but about Black music as well. You know, because I explained to them, even though we're going to start with African drumming, we're going to go into some spiritual music. We're going to talk about African American art songs, and I talked to them about the poetry first. And we have a relationship with the poem, and then we start to explore, well, how does that relate into modern music? You know, because as my colleagues here from the Colorado Art Project were saying, you know, you have to bring it to the now. So finding ways to connect the music all of the time, and just having that one-on-one conversation. So for me, when I do all of my recitals, before it was about, oh, I don't want to say anything, I just want to sing. So I'm just singing and I'm walking off, you know. But I've engaged the audience, and I talk to them, and I tell them what the music is about, and then I make it a point to, you know, come back after the performance and not just stay backstage, but come to the front, you know, down on the floor, take off my shoes, and talk to you about what the music is. And I encourage my colleagues who are performing with me to do the same. And it's that one-on-one connection that you get. And then you start to draw people back to your performances, and they bring a couple of friends. You know, so these students who I've taught abroad, they've been to my recitals, and they brought friends. You know, and they're like, ooh, this is so cool. So it's, you know, the Black music and the African American music, it isn't just about the composers, but it's about the vessels that, you know, the vehicles that are also presenting this music, because it is for everyone. Yeah.
Daryl Taylor would like to make a comment. Can you, Daryl?
I just wanted to speak on, when we talk about Black music, the world has a certain conception of what the Black experience is and what Black music is. And far beyond that, I mean, probably the last corner of that that's considered is what we do in our field, focusing on African American classical music. There is our responsibility for self-determination and writing our own story, and not allowing our narrative to be prescribed for us, but rather are participating in it and saying, this is indeed who we are. It's a full part of who we are, and that's part of the driving force behind a lot of what we do to bring to the fore the music that would otherwise be neglected or overlooked. When I first came to the idea of wanting to do music by Black composers, I'm sure I'm not unique in this experience. My well-intending undergraduate instructors very often looked at me quizzically and said, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what's been done by Black composers in the classical realm. And so, of course, now, you know, many decades later, there's more information on the ready. But I have to say, we can't delude ourselves into thinking that the world in general, when they think about Black music, that they immediately think about Hurley, or that they immediately even think about Still or Fried, that when you will always encounter a little bit of pushback. People will say, well, you know, how about Gershwin? That's Black music. Oh my God. It's absolutely the thing that we have to push back against.
Thank you. One last question, we need to clear for the next panel, yes.
Yes, so my name is Dr. Tiffany Jackson. I was here at University of Michigan in 1989, and I studied with George Shirley. My question is, I'm from New Haven, Connecticut, and I did some research on Harry T. Burleigh at UConn, where I got my doctorate degree last year. And I remember doing a research paper, and my professor literally didn't know who Burleigh was. I won't name him, I won't do that. But, and it surprised me, but I also felt like I was doing good work, that this is like, wow, okay, this is really good work. But the question I want to ask specifically is, where did the stigma come that only Black people could sing spirituals? Because I don't think it was Burleigh's intention. As a matter of fact, I think Deep River, which was one of his early settings, was dedicated to a Mary, I can't think of her name. Yeah, Mary Jordan, who was not Black. So I just want to understand, how did that stigma develop? Where did that story start to develop? Because when I was an apprentice member at the Houston Grand Opera, one of my colleagues is a very famous opera singer. Now, her name is Joyce DiDonato. And I remember she was asking me, Tiffany, I want you to coach me. I want to sing spirituals. One of the last things she did at in Houston was to sing recital. And she said, I want you to coach these spirituals for me. And I said to me, I wonder why she want me to coach the spirituals for her, because I didn't necessarily have the authority on singing spirituals, Well, I said, okay, maybe it'll make her feel better about performing the music. And I think it did make her feel better. But I was really impressed that she wanted to do this. But I just wanted to ask you, Lynn, specifically, when do you think that happened? Because that was not Burleigh's intention. I don't believe.
I don't think it was Burleigh's intention. I don't think it's the intention of any composer that what they write should be sung specifically by anybody. I think that idea exists in the minds of people who are looking at dividing rather than bringing people together. And I think that in the case of spirituals, many whites may feel that, well, I don't have a right to sing this. I think that that's something the same as many Blacks might feel, I don't have a right to sing Verdi or Puccini. I mean, forgetting the fact that it's a different language. I mean, only in America do you find people putting something on stage that the audience can't understand. How often did you go to hear a play in French on Broadway? It's not going to happen. At Covent Garden for years, at Covent Garden, an international opera house, until the 50s, they did foreign language operas in English. English National Opera does everything in English. It was only in the 50s that they began at Covent Garden to do operas in the original language. So only here do we have that problem. And we expect an audience to understand when we do Schubert or Brahms in a recital, that these are stories. We expect that audience to understand what this is all about when they don't speak German, French, or Italian, or Spanish. So now we've got screens and subtitles, but that's still not getting us to the point of understanding. And I'm very excited about what's happening now. People not being afraid to use a screen to bring people in. Years ago when I taught at the University of Maryland before coming here, I was having a conversation with a professor about the Disney presentation of the Stravinsky work, the Fantasia, which I loved as a child. I thought that was fascinating. And he said, "Well, you liked that?" And I didn't have the intellectual capacity at that point to really appreciate Stravinsky without having it illustrated. So, come on, for heaven's sake. These are stories. And if I tell you a story, I've got to present it in such a way that you're going to have a chance of understanding what I'm saying. And so whatever we can do at this point to get that across so that people can appreciate and embrace, rather than feeling as though they have no right to perform it. No, music, again, as I said last night, belongs to everyone. And it deals with the human condition, passions, emotions. And it's our job as performers to get that across. And I would just say, one of the main ways of doing that is singing the words rather than the syllables. Quite often, and composers in the audience forgive me for saying this, how often does a composer write a line of text and write it in such a way that it makes it almost impossible to understand when sung? By setting the unstressed syllables higher than the stress. I'm going down today. What? Huh. I'm going downtown today. So it's on us to make sure that however the text is set, it's on us to sing the words. That way, if it's in the language they can understand, and sometimes even if it isn't, if you sing the words properly, people will think you know what you're saying, and it will be much more expressive.
I want to thank the whole panel. I know that there are more comments and conversations. Let's thank them first. And I think that's a perfect segue into the composer session that's coming, so take some time to stretch. But I hope, again, with bringing this all together, during lunch, sit down and talk to each other about your questions and concerns. That's all, and you're gonna have time this afternoon with Kira Gaunt's session as we're talking about building a sustainable Thank you. Eric.
I'll write them too.
It's so nice to see you. So
I'm good. How are you?
I love it.
Back in your presence. That's wonderful. Excuse
Looks like we need twice as many I walked through here earlier today. I'm like, this place I'll be right back.
There's also live
streaming. Everyone's looking at some Facebook. It's so good.
Philip Escarlate.
It's really good. Thank you. Thank you.
You still there?
Yeah. Thank you.
So what did you have happen when you were it feels like it when you sit in certain institutions, like everything is like, but it feels like it's and it's all in like people things. Yes, that's what I noticed. Yeah, I've been working there in the archives for years. Yeah, right. But just sort of seeing now, it's like, yes. Someone actually contacted me a couple of days ago because they're looking to do some trainings running included in front of us. And then, question, which is good. And I said, what is the institution's, commitment to sort of doing that? Because of course, like, it's good to have people around. So, according to them, it's fun of mine, but given what's going on, in the past weeks, I think they're looking to get like a short fix, much more complicated problem. But to answer your question, I mean, one thing that is really exciting for me is, hey, how are you? Yeah, good to see you. Gateway. Yeah. Good morning. Mike, Gary. Yeah, good to see you.
Attention, please. We are about to begin. We're about to begin the next session, which is entitled The Black Composer's Culture. And we are really very honored to have a distinguished panel of young Black composers. And I say that because compared to me, I'm ancient and they are indeed young. But they're all very, very gifted, and they have a wealth of experience in writing in a variety of genres. And especially we've given consideration to the song. And I am particularly interested in not only original song in the form of the art song, which is generally thought to be original poetry, the marriage of original poetry with original music, but also art song settings that they may have which are based upon folk music. It is not at all unusual to find a spiritual setting that is done in the way of an art song. And I believe it's significant as another vehicle for being able to extend yet another level to what we know and understand about the spiritual. Clearly, over the ages, that has been done by many composers. I think of the wonderful transcriptions of Samuel Coleridge Taylor that are spiritual transcriptions. So these works have become bases for original composition over the years. It just did not begin here. So we'll be looking at a combination of things. The art song as original poetry and music, the art song as it may apply to literature, as I've done myself, which may be prose literature or biblical passage, and the art song as settings of resource materials from our folk music traditions. And I am happy to have here, I will begin with this distinguished gentleman here whom I know a little about because he's my colleague at Morehouse College, and let me just share a little about him. This is Dr. Chad Hughes, who uses another acronym, his Sir Wick Hughes. He is director of bands at Morehouse College, where he teaches history of jazz, applied trombone, and directs the concert band, the jazz band, and the symphonic band. Dr. Hughes has composed for orchestra, voice, band, and the commercial music genres. His music has been played and read by the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, University of Michigan Marching Band, the Cleveland Chamber Symphony, the University of Memphis Concert Band, and the Baker University Concert Band. And by his own declaration, arguably the most important work for him is Visions of a Renaissance and a composition called Slice, which is a sonata for violin and piano. Among his art songs are a composition entitled Emotions, songs for medium voice and orchestra. And if you want to see more about his music, he has a website, which is www.sirwickmusic.com. Please welcome Dr. Chad Hughes.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. As I get ready to load up the audio for this for the first time, I feel it wonderful to be here to talk about these songs because I wrote them here at the University of Michigan while I studied with Professor James Aikman and Eric Santos, who is here right now. But also two of the biggest inspirations for voice for me personally is also here in the audience. One of them would be the great George Shirley. And I'm not trying to embarrass him right now, but I've learned so much from him just asking about the voice. Like, I was so captivated by the members of the studio, in particular, another person who teaches here, Scott Piper. And I would always go to the opera rehearsal, and I was just so captivated by these voices that were here. And I said, man, how do you do that? So I would just start writing. And Professor Shirley will always take time out of teaching a full studio load now and advise it Phi Mu Alpha, where I first met him. And he would sit there and give me lessons on syllabification all the time, where he was a stickler on making sure that your words are at the right position to bring out the meaning of the words. So I just find it a beautiful thing that Dr. Toppin would ask me to come here and talk about my songs that I wrote here, and actually in room 2057, which is now our office actually. The suite now is, the performance technology is now on the lower floor, but all this comes to fruition for everything. So let me get ready to load this. Sorry. Well, while we're doing that, so what I wanted to do for these songs, basically, the songs are called emotions. So what I did was I took four emotions for a state of a relationship. The first one was thankfulness. When you meet someone that you love dearly, you just want to give honor to God for this wonderful opportunity. The second one I picked is anger, because in any relationship, you're going to get mad at that person at any given moment. The third one is to miss someone, which I labeled the French word manquer. And sometimes in the practice rooms, or you go home to see your family over holidays, you will miss this significant person. And then the fourth one is just love. And once again, hearing Scott Piper actually sing various Verdi and Puccini roles here at the University of Michigan, I said I want to write something that is really strong for the male voice for that. So I would go upstairs to the library and just get all the scores. Couldn't read Italian worth anything. So then I had to get an Italian dictionary to try to figure out what the heck are they saying. So I'm gonna go ahead. This song cycles are only 5 minutes. It's only 5 minutes long, so we're gonna start from the beginning. And I'm going to put the libretto up here for you to see. Yes, it is my original text.
Till I found you, I was alone. Cursed me with sorrow. Lord, take loves me so. I beg you, forgive me, someone. Oh, I beg you, Lord, forgive me, my dream, my soul. To know you get on my nerves and repay me to the highest degree. Don't call me, I don't want to see you right now. I miss you. Where are you? I want to hear you. I miss you. I just want to say your love. The sun has set, the moon will shine, and I have not seen your face. I sit alone, I live alone, why haven't I seen your face? What we are I want to say how much you mean to me. I want to say how much I love you so. No one else has means so much to me. You are the one that I've been praying for. When I first saw you in the morning sun, I knew I had to work on one to make all my dreams come true every night, every day. My heart burns when my eyes my fantasy.
Well, Dr. Hughes, since you gave the mic back to me, I guess that means I'm supposed to say something. I am not usually one to do what I call armchair analysis, but there is certainly in the dimension of music, impressions from a first hearing. And as such, there are a number of things that come to me. First of all, you did this as an undergraduate composer?
I did.
That's very impressive, sir, for a lot of reasons. And one of them I point to, it's not unique in the genre of art song going all the way back to the 17th, 18th century, certainly. In the writing of art songs where one combines orchestral accompaniment as a part of it rather than using the piano as a resource. That is impressive because of the maturity of the orchestral ensemble involved in this. Additionally, from the movements that I heard, it seems as though none of them are particularly given to any specific kind of Afrocentric idioms, perhaps except for the last one. What was were you dealing with any certain elements of composition when you were writing this? Tell me a little more about it. This is just on first year.
To be honest, that's a great question. I was more inspired by necessarily the African-American performers that I knew about. Of course, like I said, Professor Shirley, Professor Verrett, the Honorable Leontine Price. I just wanted to try that. After watching many performances of them perform, I just wanted to write something that would kind of continue the line of what I saw them do. Of course, can't forget about the great Miss Norman also. And so that's really coming here, really learning about these performances that I knew nothing about, and just really just trying to write something that hopefully that people will perform more than once.
Great. I will have some other questions, and hopefully we'll have time for you to ask them. But I would first like for you all to just hear the body of work from these talented composers. And the next person that I will call upon to share with us is Miss Regina Harris Baiocchi. She is an award-winning composer, author, and poet whose music has been performed by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, the U.S. Army Band, the Lincoln Trio, Steppenwolf Theater, Seattle Philharmonic Orchestra, Southeast Symphony, and many others. Her byline appears in publications by Oxford University Press, Encyclopedia of African American Music, the Chicago Tribune, Obsidian, and Modern Haiku. Regina is the author of Variations in Black Music and BAM, which is the Black Arts Movement textbook. She has 3 novels, including Indigo Sound. Her poetry volumes include Blues Haiku, the Urban Haiku, and Regina founded 6 Degrees Women's Composers, and she is the founding executive director of Haiku Festival of Chicago. Now in its 16th year of celebrating children through poetry while promoting literacy. Her music is recorded on several CDs, most recently, Where Freedom Rings. She also maintains a private studio. And if you would like to know more about her and her music, her website is www.reginaharrisbaiocchi.com. Ms. Baiocchi.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you so much for having me here. I may or may not be able to share my music with you. I brought an aria from my opera, No One's Child, and I brought 2 art songs, a piece that I set, a poem by Chris Abani, who's not only a great poet and a novelist, but also a personal friend of mine. And then I also, some haiku that I said. I've written hundreds of haiku. There's so many things that I'm just like infatuated with and obsessed with, and haiku is one of them. So I will tell you the story of how this whole opera came about. I used to teach mathematics, another obsession, another love that I have. And I worked about 12 miles from home, and I took the 2 trains and a bus from South Shore to the north side of Chicago where I was living. And I would read to kind of like decompress, to kind of wash off my day of being with 7th through 12th graders teaching math. And as I was reading, I gave myself assignments to do. And one summer, I read everything by Zora Neale Hurston. Another summer, I read everything by Langston Hughes, W.E.B. Du Bois, as he likes to say, but I just want to say Du Bois. And long story short, I belong to a group called American Women Composers. I belong to the Midwest chapter. Ours was the oldest and longest running chapter in the organization. And when they first came to me, they didn't have any Black members, and they courted me, and I said, I really don't want to be the only chip in the cookie. If you're looking for, if you're looking for that only one, I'm probably not that person, because I really, I don't have time to be that kind of pioneer. being composers, they knew exactly what to do. They whet my appetite. They said, we would like to commission you to write some. Oh, chocolate chip is not my favorite. I prefer oatmeal raisin, but let's go with chocolate chip. So anyway, they asked me to write something about the Black experience. And I was just steeped in Zora Neale Hurston, and I said, I fell in love with this essay she wrote, 1928 essay called How It Feels to Be Colored Me.
Yes.
And when you first look at that, how it feels to be colored me, you think that the emphasis is on colored, and I took it as the emphasis being on me, because here's this woman who was, born into a family in an all-Black town in Florida where her dad was the mayor of the town, he was the pastor. He kind of reminded me of DuSable and his relationship with Chicago. When DuSable, Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable founded Chicago, he was the mayor, he was everything, he wore every hat. And so when you go into that municipality, when you're talking about Chicago or where Zora was from in Florida, you see her father's hand and you see their folklore, you see their culture all over the town. And so I said, okay, I'll set this. So I wrote 2 pieces, How It Feels to Be Colored Me and I'm Not Tragically Colored. And I wrote them for soprano, cello, and piano. And for those of you who know Elaine Mack, she's a personal friend of mine. So with the idea that Elaine was going to play cello, Benita Hyman sang she was our soloist, and our pianist was one of the other composer's husband who worked with Lyric Opera Chicago. And every time, these songs were very popular, I'm grateful for that. Every time they were sung, people would say, oh, what opera is this from? I was like, opera, great opera. What are they talking about? Anyway, so they kept asking me this question, and finally, it sinked in. This is an opera. Maybe I should be writing for an opera. So I knew from my reading assignments that I had given myself on this 12-mile trek home every day that Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes had the same literary patroness. And so they wrote a play together, and that's how the opera came to be. So it started with American Women Composers Midwest commissioning me to write those songs and me putting together the opera. And so it's now 25 years old. My baby is 25. Can you imagine that? I know, it's 25 years old. I mentioned to my nephew, my nepson, my nephew whom I adopted when my brother and his wife passed, and I was talking to him about what I was gonna be doing here today, and he was like, but I'm older, so I'm really your first. I said, yeah, you are. But it's so, are we up?
Yeah.
Is it cute? Yeah. So you're going to hear Godmother's Lesson. And Andre and I were talking this morning, this is something we can get into when we get into the Q&A, about how difficult it is sometimes to get permission. So I needed to get permission from the Hughes estate and the Hurston estate. And long story short, some of the pain that it caused me, I reminded myself, you're a poet, you can write your own libretto. You don't have to go through this. And that's what I ended up doing. And that's what I suggest everyone else does, unless you have an attorney or unless you have legal skills or an inordinate amount of time to negotiate contracts with attorneys. It's not like you're talking to Hurston or you're talking to Hughes. And bear in mind that, thanks to people like Raul Abdul and my mentor and great teacher, Hale Smith, who had a personal connection with Langston. Raul Abdul was his personal assistant. Hale Smith was a distant cousin. So I had all of these people saying, this woman is worthy, can you grant her permission? And I still didn't get everything I wanted. And so I think when the dust settled, they said, you may set these songs, but not in the context of the opera. I didn't tell them the opera was already written. So I had to pull all of that stuff out, and I learned and relearned that the art, of course, in writing is rewriting. And so even though I was a little angry at the time, they did me a great favor, because there is nothing more, there's no lesson learned more than rewriting your own music. Who was I then? Why did I do that? Why is that F sharp and not G flat? And who besides Hale Smith can hear the difference? Those kinds of decisions. But I want to play Godmother's Lesson There are three main characters in the opera: Zora Neale Hurston, Langston Hughes, and Charlotte Vanderveer Quick Mason. Charlotte Vanderveer Quick Mason was a philanthropist and the wife of Dr. Mason, who had people like Langston and Zora living in her 40 room penthouse at 499 Park Avenue. And because she couldn't have children, she insisted that all of the people that she supported called her godmother. And sometimes she kind of ruled with an iron fist. And so behind her back, they called her guard mother. So she comes into her solarium where Zora and Langston are writing a play, and she has a parcel. She has discovered something that Langston mailed out to Amy Springer came back because it didn't have enough postage. And she, when you see a package, you want to open it, even if it's not addressed to you, right? So she took a peek and discovered that Langston had given her the same scarf and the same card for Mother's Day that he gave Amy Springer. So she was a little hurt. And she says, I learned a lesson just today, an old lesson, some might say. You know what I mean. We've all had our dreams sprinkled with reality, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is Godmother's lesson to Keisha Mizay-Kazart, a singer in Chicago. Okay, in 2 minutes, I'll just say a couple of things. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the last line of the piece. I rewrote it. She said, an ingrate has pushed me into this darkness. And then I have another ending line that says, Zora and Langston are no longer my godchildren. But when I initially wrote this, I wrote a line that said, a darkie has pushed me into this darkness. And everybody who sang these songs are like, I can't say that. I'm not saying that. Especially godmother was white. And most of the white people are like, no, not doing it. Just not doing it. Even, one of my Italian cousins who was a trained opera singer, she was like, Regina, I can't do it. I can't. But I was trying to explain to people, this is the voice of Charlotte Vanderveer Quick Mason in 1930. This was the vernacular, and I know how it is. I had to change, some words from Negro to color to reflect, Blackness, that kind of thing. The second thing is I write with my voice, even if I'm writing for a trumpet or French horn or, accordion or whatever. Never wrote accordion music, don't know where that came from. And so I originally heard this in D flat. Minor, and whenever people sang it, they were having the hardest time. And the pianist that you heard here was the first person who was brave enough to say D flat. All these flats, no way. So I just want to say how important it is to be flexible, and I transposed it to C minor because I want people to feel comfortable playing and singing my music. Thank you.
Variations in Black music.
Thank you.
And Sister Sunday, is that
That's me, and I'm selling these books today if you're interested. Variations in Black music. They're only $20. Help a starving composer.
All right, our next composer is Professor Andre Myers. He is a composer and instructor of piano, composition, and theory based in California's Inland Empire. He serves on the music faculty at the San Jacinto Valley Academy. I'm sorry. Yes. He serves on the music faculty at the San Jacinto Valley Academy and the AAM Academy in Redlands and Sky Forest, California. Paul, an insightful and skillful new voice by the Times Union, and an ingenious, powerful composer by iCareIfYouListen.com. His music mixes narrative, drama, poetry, and meditations on color to create work that aspires to moments of honesty, poignancy, and depth. Recent commissions include Partita for solo violin for the Street Symphony founder and MacArthur Fellow Vijay Gupta, cadenza and aria for international viola soloist Brett Doidner, and quilting, poems by County Cullen for the acclaimed countertenor Darrell Taylor and orchestra of Santa Monica. His most recent commission for the Albany Symphony and Student Voices of Albany High School, Studies in Hope by Frederick Douglass, was praised for blending a craggy modernist instrumental texture with the energy and grit of a hip-hop artist. Times Union article. Now, Mr. Myers.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back in Ann Arbor, my word. So I see a lot of friends in the audience, and it's just lovely to be back. It's just lovely to be back. So I'm going to start talking. My talk today is called 10 Minutes on Voice, a primer on African-American art song for young composers. What follows are some thoughts about my practice as a composer of African-American art song. We start with a story today. In 1985, a 12-year-old began making up his own songs on the piano while waiting for a second piano teacher. In 1986, at 13, he started taking piano lessons from a student named Jane Jackson at what was then called the University of Michigan School of Music in Ann Arbor. A couple of years later, in 1988, he was introduced through the generosity and support of his parents to Willis Patterson, and through Dean Patterson, met a young doctoral student in composition named Bill Banfield. Bill introduced this high schooler to a library filled with music and told him about how voices move together about similar, oblique, and contrary motion in voice leading. They made Black art together. And Bill introduced him to a young ethnomusicology graduate student named Kira Gaunt, who sang his first song cycle in public when he was only a junior in high school. We did this in the city of Los Angeles, a city that many years later this composer would come to make his home. This is what that composer's voice sounded like in 1985.
Idea for new song, so I won't forget.
Sounds crazy. That's
New song, so I won't forget.
This was recorded on an ancient media device known as cassette tape. I also want to acknowledge the presence of one of my senseis here, and that's Dr. Eric Santos, and I'm also really pleased to see you, Dr. Eugene Roberts, in the room, and of course, Rashan. After undergrad in the lonely and gray city of Rochester, he didn't know what music sounded like to him anymore. He struggled with all the advice he received during his college years. Luckily for him, he began to sit in meditation every day and chant Buddha sutras and started to find his voice doing different things when he did those things. And after college, he started rapping and things came together in strange ways for him. And this is what his voice sounded like doing that. And this is important because I want to stress that while African-American voices are very, very strongly steeped in the Christian tradition, there are non-Christians making African-American music in classical artwork. And so I just wanted to share that and make that known. Let's see, where's my rap song? Here we are. By way of human beings living with heaven's full, we find a way to soar like we never did, but still we're taking flight within the double negative. By this I mean to say that when I see myself walking on the world, talking to a girl, stumble and fall, I wonder why I ever even made the effort at all. I look upon this moment with grace, find the place within my heart to start a new one, set the slower pace, so I can keep my stamina up and finish the race, so I can forge ahead and know my original face and tie the binds, transform like Optimus Prime and fly into the multiverse to share what's on your mind. It's a brilliant use of your time because it's not possible to front on the day. It's not possible for you to delay. Just live your life sun to sun, moon to moon. Hey, it's not possible to front on the day. It's not possible for you to delay. Just live your life sun to sun, moon to moon. Hey, yo, it's not possible to front on the day when you see the joy and simple things, the joy that you can bring, the good of hanging with your brother or your best friend, the awesome that comes from reading a story to the end, the helping hand and loving heart and mind you can extend, working hard, taking charge of every moment you got. Forgive when you're not, cause it's not possible to front on the day, yeah. It's not possible for you to delay. Just live your life sun to sun, moon to moon. Hey, yo, it's impossible to front on the day, cause every morning is an invitation for your best self to say, just live your life sun to sun, moon to moon. Hey, the brilliant